How do you want to know? Okay, so today I want to be reacting to something Asmongold says. Asmongold is a fairly famous person on the internet. I don't think he needs much of an introduction, but whatever. He is talking specifically, reacting himself to a event that just occurred yesterday, I believe, where an individual by the name of Charlie Kirk, who I'm not familiar with, but my wife tells me that he is one of these more conservative quote-unquote commentators, has been shot in the neck by a long-range rifle. I'm not sure about any of the circumstances. I haven't really looked into it, but I've had a few thoughts, and Asmongold has a few as well, so let's see what he has to say.
And not only is it normal, but it's actually encouraged. And the problem is that now people are acting on it. And you're starting to see this happen, and I think it's going to continue getting worse. I don't think Charlie Kirk is going to be the last one, but I think that we will look at Charlie Kirk's death and see it as a turning point in this topic.
Well, beg to differ. The problem with all of us human beings, and I don't think it's a modern problem, contrary to popular belief. I think a lot of people argue that it's just nowadays that everybody is has essentially got a memory span of about 5 seconds. I don't think that's true. As Orwell describes it in 1984, we've always been at war with insert new country here. The point that Orwell makes is that it's very easy to make people believe something that isn't so through propaganda. But there's another point underpinning this one, which is that people's memory is short enough for this to be able to happen. So there's been a couple of days where 2 murders have occurred, right? And for some reason they're high profile. This one is a bit more high profile because the individual is more known. But essentially what Asmongold is saying is that he thinks that all of this talk on the internet about being this level of intolerance being okay is generating these things, these events, and that it's a turning point, that things are going to change. He's going to explore this a little bit more in a second. But I think the entire read on everything is a bit wrong. Because I was young once, and I remember the same discussions happening when I was young, only from the other perspective, where the youth were saying like this or that politician ought to be killed, it'll be the only way to be rid of them, etc., etc. Obviously it's all talk, but it used to happen. Now the knowledge with which I grew up fundamentally is that the quote-unquote right wing, which doesn't exist. In fact, very, very sad to see that the Americans have actually adopted the same terminology as the Europeans, a false terminology. But the right-wingers were all violent and dangerous. And that for some reason the left-wingers are all compassion and roses. It is so plainly, blatantly obvious that this isn't so. And not only that it isn't so, but it's down close to the exact opposite of what is actually the case. Because the quantity of violence that comes from the goody-feely side is preposterously high. It's always been enormous. Like, when I was young, I was in Italy, it was all the rage talking about Le Brigate Rosse. That would have been a terrorist group, openly communist, as an example. Like, the quantity of violence that consistently comes from the people who are ready for action, despite professing peace. Not peace, but utopian peace. Right? There's going to be peace when my vision is implemented fully, essentially. This does not have a political side. It does not... that's why left and right is so ridiculously stupid as terminology. A, it's completely abstract. B, it doesn't mean anything. Right? Well, what needs to be talked about is authoritarianism on the part of one or a few to control the many for a greater good, essentially. You will notice very quickly how this definition applies perfectly well to Soviet communism, to European socialism, to National Socialism, to fascism. They're all exactly the same. Exactly the same underpinning logic in very many details. Okay? With all of this said, it's absolutely fascinating to see how, historically speaking, a heck of a lot of these acts of guerrilla warfare, these terroristic acts, essentially, of murdering this one person or attacking or shouting down or prohibiting, disallowing the speech of somebody, come consistently from the most militant side of the compassionate ones. Because tolerance is not in their interest. And that is what is missing. It's missing on the internet, it's missing in real life. In real life, it's much, much, much better. The vast majority of people tend to be vaguely respectful of one another. Right? But basically, so far as Mangold has argued that basically there's insane people that do insane things and it's incentivized and the whole climate is going in this direction, and he's about to say that this is a turning point. Let's see.
And what I'm really trying to get at here with this entire point is that right now we are at a extremely pivotal moment. And I think that what's going to end up happening is that right-wing people are not going to continue to turn the other cheek. They're not going to continue to just, oh, well, this is just a crazy left-wing radical. I think you're probably going to see right-wing people doing the same thing to left-wing people.
Okay, so I think this is exceedingly improbable. Because, I mean, it's probable insofar as the word right wing doesn't mean anything, and the expression right wing doesn't mean anything, the expression left wing doesn't mean anything. There's absolutely no guarantee at all that the individual who shot Kirk is left wing, right wing, or anywhere in between wing. I mean, he's some wing, but these, in the sense that these wings things are invented and they don't mean anything. It's a collectivization of of a certain group of ideas in a way that's extraordinarily vague. But what he's saying is that essentially there's going to be some kind of reaction. And I honestly do not know if he's right or wrong, obviously, but it seems exceedingly improbable to me. And it seems to me that I have a coughing problem. No, and it seems to me that historical precedent has happened so many times now about the potential reactions that actually don't occur. Right? You have thousands in all of the various countries. Right, some stuff that's more organized, like the English Defence League, when Tommy Robinson was young, to more vigilante justice systems like the KKK in the United States probably would have been. I don't know, right? So all sorts of different organizations, big and small, to try and deal with problems of this sort. But the only thing that resolves any of this, right, in a permanent fashion, is cultural tolerance and no level of, I'm about to contradict myself, I guess, of tolerance for crime. Like, what would psychologically drive somebody to act in such a way? He argues, for example, that the murder of the girl was by an insane person. I really have no patience for the whole sane, insane, etc., etc., etc. The reason why prisons and fundamentally the death penalty exist and we punish people like the lovely enricher that stabbed the girl is because they are a detriment to everybody else. Nobody's willing to tolerate that level of behavior. But it's happened a million times and it keeps on happening. And it will keep on happening. And it's very old. Because all you need to do is look in history a little bit and you'll see case upon case upon case upon case upon case of this. Like even very, very high profile people like presidents or heads of countries got murdered. It's the only way you solve this is through a level of base cultural cohesion where individuals understand that violence towards a person is not. It's not that it's not a solution, because it is a form of solution for them. It is, in an Alinsky sense, it does obtain the result that the individual who was bold enough to take the action, it obtains the result. I mean, the chap wanted to stab the lady. This lady is now in the ground. The chap has obtained the result. The result has been obtained. But the culture I'm talking about is a culture that says it doesn't matter how much I disagree with anybody. There are many, many, many lines I'm not prepared to cross for any reason. Right? For example, I'm on record saying that people must hate their government, and I think that. I think it now, and I'll think it for a very long time, I suspect. One of the reasons why I think it is because the government is bleeding me dry, me and my family. I think the level of taxation on the globe is absolutely, completely unacceptable. And I think it's one of the primary drivers of the failing of people having the desire to live, hence reproduce, and so on and so forth. The level of damage that socialist taxation does to the world is inconceivably high. Yes? Okay. So, despite the fact that I'm being robbed all the time by my own government for nearly nothing in return, it's it's a robbery, right? So, but it's one of these intolerable things, and yet no part of me thinks that one should go and take it upon some, I don't know, the finance minister of country X in which you reside. It is it is nonsense, right? That individual represents an entity, and the entity is corrupt. Of course, the entity is made out of people, right? And the entity should be stopped. Yeah, sure, but there's absolutely no need for any degree of violence. That is my position. This should be the position of essentially everybody. The problem is that criminals are not punished. And this is old. It's not a recent thing. Right? And it keeps on happening in history that these events occur. And it's going to be a pivotal point. It isn't. Oh, the magic virus has come. It's going to be a pivotal point. People are going to start rebelling, and it isn't. Governments have succeeded at putting something like, I do not know what number it's going to be, but hundreds of millions, right, of people in jail, in jail for 2 years. I was there, right? That wasn't a pivotal point. You think that the shooting of this in one individual is going to be a pivotal point? You think that people in the quote-unquote right wing, whoever the heck they are going to start shooting people quote-unquote on the left wing? You think Kamala Harris needs to worry for her safety? I think not. Right? And yeah, because most violence tends to come from the side that is openly hostile. Right? The quote-unquote right wing is openly hostile to crime. Right? Again, quote unquote right wing. I don't know. I really don't know what's going to happen, but my guess is a whole kerfuffle with everybody, including myself, unfortunately, talking about these events and then everybody forgetting them. And I swear to you, I think it's going to take 6 or 7 days. I think this is all that's going to happen. I do not know how you solve this, but none of this is solved in a quick way. None of it will be solved with a coup d'etat. None of it is going to be solved with any of a revolution, a revolt, none of that. The way this is attacked is by A, making children, B, caring for those children, C, trying to exit quote unquote society as much as possible. Possibly. But it's hard to say because you never know until you're older. For example, the moment in which I won't have a pension, how terrible will I be, excuse me, for all the people around me? I don't know. I was thinking about this just yesterday. But yeah, I don't think Asmongold is right. I think this is not going to cause anything. And I think him talking about a turning point implies that there haven't been such turning points in the past. And I'm not talking about extreme events like this or the other party coming up in power through, like I said, that probably a much more substantial level of exasperation is necessary to get there, and a much higher level of propaganda and pushing a certain idea and and uniting people, etc. By now you can't get men and women to actually pair up. I don't think it's literally any purpose for anything, right? But this poor fella got shot in the most unjust of ways, executed without trial, for no reason at all. Probably had a squeaky clean criminal record. The same goes for that girl. Whereas you have these monsters on the other side, because in order for you to be socialist in mind, you have to be low IQ. There's no other option. I mean, you're either extremely deluded or you're low IQ, which is normal. That's why young people who are heavily indoctrinated in the school machinery and haven't really experienced the robbery on their own backs are such strong advocates of this, and they're so likely to act on the indoctrination. It's very sad. But yeah, have children, have good families, try to exit the machinery as much as you possibly can, so reduce your taxation. I don't know, don't buy eggs, have chickens, that's what I'm saying. And then absolutely for no reason at all put those children in school, ever. Like, you can put them in school when they're older, when they're like, high school or something like that, when they're like, their mind is somewhat resistant, like that they've learned to think for themselves. But when they're little, that's dreadful. But it's not a turning point. Sorry, nothing's turning. I am very sorry for Kirk's family. I don't know what to say. But I'm not about to say that this is going to spur anything. What it's going to spur is lots of people talking about it and trying to end up making money out of it semi-accidentally. I am still coming to terms with how the whole YouTube thing works. You need to do a video of more or less this length. You need to title it in this way. You need to put blah, 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 blah. This is not the purpose of any of my videos. And what I meant to say is that I'm coming to terms with the fact that it works like this, not with the fact that I want to go along with this particular machinery, where essentially everybody is talking about exactly the same thing because a bunch of people are going to watch exactly the same thing, and then the confirmation bias algorithm keeps on showing you the same thing. Therefore, everybody chases the latest news, which is precisely the system, the mental machinery used forever to make the today relevant and the yesterday irrelevant so quickly it frightens one. Let me see if this chap has anything else to say.
And honestly, while I don't think this is a good thing, I certainly don't really feel that sorry for them, because a lot of left-wing people have no problem advocating for violence, or at least using coded language in order to advocate for violence. The fact is that there's a certain level of intellectual dishonesty that goes on in situations like this, where it's considered, oh, well, this isn't actually what they meant, and no, this is actually some other... No, it is.
It's more than that. Blimey, you're opening a can of worms. The intellectual dishonesty of the quote-unquote left-winger, I've kind of touched on it before. You must be either stupid or a gigantic liar. Or deluded, that was the terminology that I used. They talk about compassion and togetherness, etc. And they are a driver of the vilest of activity based on ideological opposition. And the ideological opposition to a socialist is obvious, because the moment in which the socialist is honest, he will say to you, I will take your stuff and move it wherever I please. That's the fundamental principle of the socialist. And you will agree, because if you don't, there'll be a problem. And that's mafia language. That's the problem. Yeah, it's interesting to see how many of these observers, myself included, are sharp enough to observe certain things, but can never connect the present to the past. And I'm not saying that you should read 57 trillion million history books. That's not the point. You just need to think. You need to think your way. And the hubris of saying something like, this has never happened before. Yeah, I think it has many times.